more than I think like the endurance of the long series, and this could be that opportunity. But it's time to find out, Beo.
That it is. So we're going to spawn on a very macro map, very standard map as we get started in this series. In the bottom left, Nate, in the blue, he is the best player that we've had in Stormgate thus far. He's the Celestial player. His name is PartinG.
Absolute champion, and his opponent in the Northeast, no stranger to championship finishes himself, a ruthless competitor throughout the years. He is Elazer.
Yeah, so as we take a look at this map, again, we're talking about how do you get into a series. Celestials, they have very strong early game. They're very good at maybe not playing on the map. You know, you have Fiends, that's an issue. But they can hit this timing with a bunch of Argents. They can hit this timing with a bunch of Kree maybe going for aggressive plays. But it's that mid game where they struggle, Nate. Yeah, early game, they can do relatively okay. Late game, they get a bunch of Dark Prophecies out, Sabers, Scythes, whatever you want. They can make things happen. But how do you survive that early game to late game transition? And in game one, we see something from PartinG, Nate, that we saw against a bunch of Vanguard players as well. There's that Morph Core on the map on the bottom side. And, well, looks like we're probably going to see a Legion Hall go down. I guess he thinks this Seraphim idea, again, we're extrapolating a little bit, but I guess he thinks that this Seraphim idea is going to work pretty well against Infernal just as well as Vanguard.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of this yesterday, like you're saying, Beo. He sent the Morph Car out early, takes out a couple of trees between those camps, and we'll likely see him go for the tier 2 clear from the top bar and then drop on the other, and there it is. So he picks up the Luminite camp very quickly, and then, I like you said, he did before, just straight up to the Legion Hall, Seraphim. That's the air unit that does a tremendous amount of damage to the camps, and it can do a decent amount of damage to ground units. It doesn't really fight air units, but it's kind of fast too. It's a flying raider basically for camps. And I think the one area where we saw this kind of fall short though was when that really heavy hedgehog pressure came. But this is a completely different matchup, like you said. So how does this build play out versus the Infernal? I typically feel like they have a little bit weaker anti-air, so I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? As we take a look at this, certainly there's not a lot of early anti-air coming out of Elazer. Gaunts, this is a double vault opening. You're not going to have Gaunts, that early game anti-air unit, or the game ranged unit, really, that the Infernals have. You're not going to have that for a while. So Seraphim, technically, they have nothing to counter him. But also, Elazer says, look, I've gone double vault. I've got a lot of early game units. Yeah, they don't shoot up. That's fine. I'm just going to run into the main base, and I'm going to see what I can find. But yeah, the Seraphim is just going to sit on top of things. Certainly one Seraphim should be the Hexen, and you add a couple on top on that. So this aggression from Elazer already just a little bit countered. Like, what exactly are you going to do? Your brutes? As someone was saying yesterday, that you should be able to throw your swords for a one-time attack. Well, that does not exist, Nate. So you just gotta run home. With
how long the wind-up takes, you would think that sword's tall enough to just hit him from there, right? Just do an upward thrust or some kind. And this is where it gets awkward, because now they're both fighting over the same camps, and he's got so much burst damage against them that it's I'm assuming here a little bit. I can't quite see those pop-ups that the resources are going the way of PartinG, however, and you just can't really do too much. You can just fly over you. Can't really take the healing camp, so that buff goes his way. And this is a kind of like cool map control-esque style we see from him, but at the same time, it's still very bizarre. And Imp is walking into the main, by the way, of PartinG. Just gonna, I don't know, I'm not sure if that was a miss rally, but things are getting chaotic in some way. Okay, no, there's an attempted meat farm start in the main. Yeah, I guess it will take bonus from the Argents because it's light. Is that where we're going with this?
Elazer just feels so hard countered into this game right now. This map or this series design from PartinG. This is what we were talking about getting into this series, right? It's not just, wow, I'm a really good player. I'm a really good Stormgate player. My macro is great. My micro is great. Sure, fine. It's about series planning as much as it is everything else. And this is a situation where PartinG's early game has been going so well for Elazer, but Elazer has adapted, right? He does have that Conclave down. Gaunts are now on the field, so there is anti-air pressure. And remember, Seraphim, they do a great job against these creep camps early on, right? They take half damage, they do double damage. Awesome.
They're
Gaunts are not creeps, Nate. they actually can do damage to these units.
No, that's where the efficacy is going to fall off a little bit. And the question now becomes, has PartinG gotten enough money off of this? He was having to contend for that Luminite camp on the bottom, too. And when we consider the way that he's invested a lot, especially as you said, into these units that might struggle against the Gaunts, that amount of resources he has to work with now becomes an even more important question. Actually, one of them kind of rallies towards that watchtower and does get picked by the Gaunt. So you can see immediately the damage. The damage is there for Elazer to fight against this. So for PartinG, he needs to make sure that whatever ends up happening, he can try and get the engagement to be the way that he wants. But I don't really know what the... Is that enough Argents there? Is he going to be able to get enough to stop this?
So what you're looking at right now is the Brutes are a lot faster than the Gaunts until they get their tier 2 upgrade, but that's going to take quite a while. So ideally, the Seraphim are picking away at some of this stuff, and really more importantly, rather than the number of Argents and the number of Seraphim, and maybe there's a Scythe transition later on, we're going to have to see exactly how PartinG wants to play this. Better question, what's his static defense like in the main base? Does he have Link nodes? Does he have Blast nodes? Does he have things that allow him to go and deal with this massive amount of units? Because for right now, Sovereign's Watch is nice. Of course it is. Guardian Nexus means that your structures take less damage while it's empowered, which it is. So for now, with all of that static defense, with Sovereign's Watch getting kicked off, with these Argents behind, Elazer wants to go for this aggression. He moved into the main base, and the best he's going to get right now is cooldowns, power use from PartinG, and a couple of these Brutes just getting picked away at as he has to kite backwards.
Not able to get up close with the Brutes, and like you said, the Gaunts, they can deal the damage, but does not have that speed upgrade. We're talking about a relatively low-tech, struggling infrastructure kind of matchup, because it's been all about the camp so far, and for Elazer, there has not been an expansion taken. I guess the prisms are down on the low ground Luminite, but there's not even a collection array there for PartinG, so we're playing very heavily on map control, and for the camps, that Luminite patch on the bottom right did end up going back to Elazer too, sent the Fiend over to cap it, and it feels like he wants to try to force this through, though. Elazer's not down to let PartinG out of his base and transition into whatever it is he wants to do, but I'm not sure how much he can force it, because you make a great point, Beo. He's got the strike node in the back, he's got the link nodes in the power bank, so is he breakable?
I mean, do you need to break? That's the other question right now. Eventually, and I think it might actually be dead now,
okay,
the Legion Hall's gonna fall down, right? So you're not gonna have that structure on the map you can build more Seraphim out of. Okay, I guess it's around a little bit. It's gonna take a little longer. But Elazer does have a lot of map control. Yes, some of these bases are gonna be, or some of these camps are gonna be hard to reclaim because there are scanners on them, and the Hexen died early. So detection, not the easiest thing to come by for Elazer right now. That is something that is gonna allow PartinG to go and hold on to these camps up until the point where they respawn in a little bit longer. So that's first thing. And we are going to see the resource camps get reclaimed by PartinG on the bottom side as well. But again, it's this contain. Eventually, Elazer's going to expand. Elazer's going to take the majority of this map. And, well, how does a one-base PartinG get down the ramp?
Yeah, it's a very bizarre situation, because I was waiting to see when Elazer would go for the economy here. We do have the Seraphim on the right side, too, so the heal camp is something that could be contested. It looks like he got the clear on the sweeper in the top left off of those camps. So for Elazer, he's trying to get a little bit more of that map control back. And you're right, he's been able to maintain a good amount of those camps. The Seraphim can contest those a bit, but they're not going to take the army on head to head. So for PartinG, he's got the Arc Station. We're getting he's getting a Legion Hall back home, moving up to the Ascension Matrix, another Creation Chamber. So what is his next move here? Is he staying on Argents? Does he get a sign for himself that he can move out in this situation, or is he feeling a little bit scared to expose himself on the low ground?
So the Ascension Hall gives you, really the big thing that Ascension Hall gives you is those Animancers, right? That ability to go and have a bunch of splash damage, Dark Prophecies against these, these very important light units. Gaunts are the majority of the damage, the majority of the DPS that an Infernal army will have. So, from that perspective, getting that up, getting the smoke ability, right, that the Animancers have that allows them to run around and be hidden for a little bit, and not just them, the entire army. Sure, that I haven't really seen that used to much effect, but more importantly, that ability to go and drop these massive slowing AoEs on top of this low-tech army of Elazer. If you can get there, it's fantastic. But we can see the setup right now. Elazer, big concave moving on top. Immediately, an effigy goes down. Blast nodes are here, so that's doing a great job of dealing with some of these fiends. But man, there are so many Gaunts into this game that despite everything that we've seen out of PartinG in this early game map control and this counter of the build, there is just so much stuff, right? Even with double Sovereign's Watch, that the units of Elazer are not dying quick enough at the moment. It seems like destiny that this collection array is going to have to fall down. The static defense is going to have to fall down. Maybe the damage is going to be enough that enough of Elazer's army goes down that PartinG buys a little bit more time, but Nate, I don't believe in it. Elazer was countered by his build early, but he found a solution.
I mean, the Sovereign's Watch on the collection array trying to escape that is still not going to be enough. We see the power shift off as well, so it's just an awkward spot. That's a huge economic swing to lose that base, especially considering that, like you pointed out, PartinG fought for it. He committed he committed about as much as he really could to that. The Argents did not have a way out, so he was on that low ground. He was going to take the fight, stand and deliver, all that jazz. And for Elazer, you make a great point. He's exercised fantastic patience. In Stormgate, it can be a little misleading to see the late expand after the early aggression because there's just so much of the economy is unlocked through the camps, at least in the current meta. But now he's able to move and secure the central base, so he is really trying to cement himself a formidable advantage that PartinG will not be able to freestyle his way out of.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well seeing how these two players approach the game, right? So PartinG, his build's so good. Realistically, PartinG builds are a thing. He is very, very good at this. A very, really deep understanding of how you want to build yourself up into Stormgate. On the flip side, you know, he is not the best macro Celestial player. I've heard him complaining about how, you know, Celestial macro needs help, and then you talk to Monty, he's like, no, this is fine. So we're seeing the strengths and weaknesses of PartinG, and also we're seeing what happens when we have these players that are very good in early tests that have been developing things more and, you know, winning tournaments and doing all that off their fundamental RTS ability, their micro, their multitasking, things like that. But as you have players that go and start to understand the game a little bit more, figure out the unique nuances of Stormgate versus just any Blizzard RTS game, they start to go and they start to perform really well as well. And Elazer kind of seems to have both right now. Again, he was thrown for a loop with this opening. This entire idea of I'm running across the map with a bunch of Hexens, or with a Hexen with a bunch of Brutes, and it's going to be great. And oh crap, I can't shoot up. Like, that's not going to help me out at all here.
That's not good.
but he goes back and he figures things out, and all of a sudden, you know, PartinG tries to go for this natural, but he can't do anything, and it's all going to be about the Dark Prophecies. Now, Animancers are done. I don't know if Dark Prophecy is, but if he can land these massive AoE slows, massive damage, maybe there's a shot, but that is the only shot that exists.
Trying to catch the army coming around the... Oh, I love this. Using the layout of the base, saying, okay, this is the fastest path to get to the ramp. Drops it on there. He's buying himself as much time as he can, but the Fiends do try to come up and get the surround, take a lot of energy out of the Argent shots. But Elazer still has a pretty huge army. A ton more Fiends are going to run up the ramp and surround the rest of PartinG's forces, and that is going to be GG. $1 million question as we move into Broken Crown. And you know, as we get in here, this beautiful shot you have of the player intro, Elazer going for his funky old school opener on this map again we saw yesterday.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we keep calling it the old school opener, you know, the elephant opener, the build from a year ago, but it's working out really nicely. And honestly, it's looking a lot better than a lot of these newfangled, more interesting, we're going to go and we're going to, you know, like slightly more efficient builds. Because at the end of the day, right, if you get double vault, those are Luminite structures. Those are things you build a lot of brutes out of them, fine, but you don't have to mine that secondary resource. And if you're doing so, that means you're mining more of your primary resource. That means you're getting more workers to mine more, to speed up your natural expansion, and you still creep well enough. You still get all the money off the map. So it is by far more efficient. Certainly that is the case. And now, well, the question is, how does PartinG choose to respond? He's gotten this creation chamber right on top of the speed camp. He's going mass Argents here. And this is kind of how we've seen a lot of these Celestial series go, right? Game one, we're going to try something weird. Look at this Seraphim proxy we're going for. And then game number two, much more standard. We're going to go for Argents. We're going to go for map control. We're going to have this big fighting army early on. And yeah, maybe our transition's going to be a little awkward, but at least we're not going to be pinned into our main base for the first 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and we actually see, last thing you want to see is Shadow Mastiff getting shots off on the Morph Core. Gets at about 13 health. Little tanking action going on there from the camp. And yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. For me, my favorite thing to say in this situation is that's PartinG showing that little bit of respect here. That he's like, okay, Elazer is not the person I do that against. He is someone I'm going to need to bring out whatever my in his mind maybe even least interesting strategy is, because I just need to do this. I need to bring out the sharpest tool in my box and find as much purchase as I can. So the Argent's already coming out to contest a little bit over here, since he did have that early speed camp, a little more kite ability, trying to shove off the vision tower. But as they run out of energy and lose that temporary speed boost, you don't want to be caught flat-footed out on the map.
No, you really don't. And that is one of the more, if not most important skills that is not always the easiest thing to learn in Stormgate. when can I be on the map? When am I allowed to put pressure? When do I have to go home? A lot of the units in Stormgate can be very slow. So yeah, sure, maybe my cheap units, maybe my Gaunts, for example, can run away, but my Hellborn, my Magmadons, if I lose all of those, that is by far the most expensive part of my army. So when can I go? When am I allowed to be on the map? And, you know, at this point, again, these players are very good at that, but we have seen games lost because PartinG is a little bit too far on the map, and he goes and just gets surrounded and dies. And this is a little scary of a position here, Nate. It's a big Fiend surround on top of these Argents. Yes, they're heavy units. Yes, well, these Fiends are light units, so certainly, but there's just enough of them right now that PartinG's gonna have to run home. Maybe even, actually, he can't even pop a Sovereign's Watch. He's not near enough one of those mining structures, so the Fiends are just gonna take down every single Argent. Now, finally, there's that cannon from the Arc ship. But again, this is what we're talking about. You have to know when you're allowed to be on the map, and PartinG was not allowed to be where he was right there.
Look, Elazer's positioning around the trees, using the line of sight blocker and just saying, hey, he thinks he can take the camp. He thinks I'm going to retreat to the vision tower. I'm actually just going to swing around. Tried to hit him with the Skull of the Shredder as well. That ended up hitting one of the slime camps. But it really a disaster, especially considering he didn't even get the Shredder, but managed to take out the majority of the Gaunts. And when you're fighting and jockeying over the last 2 slimes in your heal camp this late in the early game, it feels a little bit brutal too. And I say brutal as they split into a few more Fiends and get another grab of an Argent, a little surrounded. Elazer demonstrating his micro chops here in Stormgate today with another strong game 2 opener by the looks of things.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out as well that these Argents, right, they have 4 shots, give or take, because they do have some energy regen, but they have 4 shots where they do a ton of damage, effectively really double damage coming out of these Argents as they fire that's that big beam that you see. But once they're out of energy, right, once that purple energy bar goes down to 0 or below the last quarter tick, they do a lot less damage. So Elazer, he had the benefit of that. The Argents they were firing at the creeps instead of the units, which meant that by the time PartinG had to go and fight the units, well, he didn't have a lot of damage. But now he's going for a little bit of a backstab, trying to get on top of this Hexen, trying to get on top of these Gaunts, but there's no power, so you can't pop that massive laser cannon. The Sovereign's Watch is not available to him right now, 50 out of 45 on the power bank, so it's all about this hiding away from the Argents, and a laser just sticking in his face is not allowing PartinG to do anything close to what he wants to do.
He knew what was in the main. He already had a few Fiends in there nibbling on the collection array. So as the Argents pop up there, the rest of the Fiends come back, more Gaunts in the natural, and Elazer is eating PartinG's. Well, it's 6 a.m. here, so I'll say breakfast, but what an absolutely filthy set of aggression that we've seen 2 games. And PartinG is not a player that we're not calling PartinG like a turtle or anything. He went out and met him and fought him on the map, but he has just not been able to match the aggression of Elazer so far in this series. And it's kind of wild to see. We talk about PartinG, all of his fans, all of his accolades and his success, and he's been dominant in Stormgate as well. But Elazer is throwing his hat in the ring, top 4, no joke, that he should be considered as well among the elite of the elite.
Oh, absolutely. So PartinG, he does have a Guardian Nexus up, right? We are on tier 2. I would love I don't know exactly what's researching on the Guardian Nexus, but man, a couple Kree, given the game that Elazer's playing, would be really solid. I mean, look, it's a bunch of Gaunts. Splash damage is really good, but PartinG has just been overrun. But now, Nate, we're into game 3 for real this time. It's a 2-0 lead for Elazer. It's Boneyard. It's a bigger map. There's no speed camp on this map, so you don't have to worry about Fiends being incredibly fast. Where do you go from here? Do we have the Seraphim build again? Actually, yeah, well, he's just going to be a Creation Chamber. What am I saying? PartinG, well, he's doing something a lot more standard here.
Yeah, the Creation Chamber on the camp. Again, it's like that. It's that question almost of the respect. What do you think you can get away with? And he goes for something once more to try and be in that okay, flexible, do what I feel like I need to. I can respond, but well, Elazer has just been feeling good there. So he feels fine running up here, seeing this with the Hexen and going home. If you're him, does this set off an alarm? Because he's building his Iron Vault next to the Shadow Demon, so he's clearly thinking about his camp game a little bit. But is this to the same degree as the last match, or is he going more in the traditional way, you think?
I think it's going to be interesting. Certainly, Boneyard is a bigger map, right? So that is something where you take a look at how things are going. It takes longer to rally across. You don't have a speed camp that allows you to maybe make the rush distance a little slower than it might otherwise be. That is certainly true. But if I know Elazer, again, part of the reason he's putting his vaults on the map is it really speeds up your creeping. You get that second brood onto the vision camp immediately. It does actually speed up your ability to develop your economy, develop your creeping on the map that much faster. Also unlocks aggression. So the big question now, Nate, is can PartinG hold on? He's big advantage to Boneyard as we move into this. And by the way, this is PartinG's map pick, is that you get a creep camp for free. You get your health camp right there. It's at your natural. If there's an attempted surround, you can put the Argents back at home very easily. You can go and just sit in that health camp, and the damage that exists that Elazer would like to go and just try to end the game with isn't quite as evident as it was on, say, you know, Boneyard or Broken Crown or something like that.
Yeah, coming up with the Fiends, trying to get the snipe on the vision camp on the north side. PartinG. Well, where have we seen this dance before? I think it was the last game, right before all PartinG's Argents got surrounded by a Fiend split at the last second. So something to keep his eyes on if he ends up getting too close to this army of Elazer. But you're right, he is close to the heal camp. He's got a very nearby, and not as far from his base necessarily as the last one. So he can play around it. Fiends, I was gonna say, looks like he was gonna split north and east, but he's keeping everything on the vision camp so far. PartinG does have a little bit of mining going on that Therium, but yeah, I like everything that you've been saying, Beo, and we're seeing PartinG play a much more passive, okay, I want to make sure I have exactly what I think I need to win a fight before I leave, because Elazer is putting a little bit of the fear into him, and it's kind of funny to see.
Yeah, I think it's also important to point out that Elazer has not, I mean, I think technically he got a second shrine in game number 1, but the game was already over, right? He was not expanding all that quickly. So yes, there's a lot of money on the map. Taking these camps is an important thing. It is worth a lot of Luminite, certainly as you take the harder to take camps, right? These Luminite camps, these Therium camps, they're worth a lot more money. But it's still only a single base, and it is a burst of money. It is not money over time. It does not power your economy in the long run. So if PartinG can go and establish himself here on 2 bases, if he can go and take a 3rd base, maybe get to Arcship, put some scanners on the map, start to go and take and just free claim some of these creep camps on the north side, even if you don't necessarily even hold on to the long-term tick of money increase, well, his economy is going to get better over time. He's going to have these buffs, and theoretically, he should be able to really out macro Elazer, out build Elazer as we move into the mid game again, because Elazer is only on this 1 base for so long. Now, is that going to happen? Is Elazer going to be able to break up in the next 2 minutes? I don't know. But that's the idea.
Yeah, right now the only thing I really see from him he's getting plague axes together. He did just start the natural expand shrine, so to your credit, yeah, what does he do there? You kind of chill while you wait for this upgrade to finish, I guess, but beyond that, it's not too much, because like you said, PartinG, look at his SimCity, you look at the way his units are even arranged around that base, that is a beautiful screen to look at. He's just saying, yeah, try and get a melee run, try and run Fiends through here. I would love to see that, and he's thinking very carefully about, I'm assuming, whatever his plan for moving out will end up being. He's getting the Legion Hall, he's getting the Ascension Matrix, but presumably, you mentioned the size of the map, Beo. Is he going to want maybe just more of his upgrades before he tries to leave with the Argents, especially since that energy is so valuable?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here, and again, seeing the Ascension Matrix go down is kind of the tell, is this is just going to be on this Animancer idea. We saw PartinG rush to it in game number 1, didn't quite get there, was close, didn't quite get there. I mean, he got the Animancers up, but he was dead by then. So if you can go, and especially on a map like this, where there are chokes to be found, you can totally zone out. There we go. We can see that's the power of tier 2. You put one of these little cat robots, I guess they're fish robots in the sky, but cat robots on the ground, whatever they are. Exactly. You can go and take these camps for free, and then it's very hard for the Infernal player to reclaim them. Certainly the scanner won't kill the Fiend, but the Infernal player is not going to steal the camp either. So you get up here into this tier 2, and you have all these dark prophecies around, and well, sure, brutes don't die to them all that much, but gaunts evaporate, and if you're just fighting brutes, you're fairly happy.
Yeah, brutes themselves, I feel like we see the role they serve as sort of fodder. But for my part, watching Elazer, I'm starting to become a little bit more of a believer in those well-timed splits, and in terms of, like, your opponent is kind of reacting based on what they see your army as, and the fact that you can, in a way, sort of instantly turn your army into a different kind of army is just, whether it's ever too strong or not strong enough to be like something we see regularly, it's always kind of fun to see how the other player reacts when you just see 4 or 5 of those brutes just split, and you all of a sudden have that surround that wasn't possible a second before. And Yeah, again, Elazer seems to be quite good at this compared to others, or at least how much we've seen it, and that makes the game a little more exciting as well.
Yeah, you know what also surprises me, by the way, as we take a look at this. Boneyard is special for a different reason. On top of it being a very big map, and you can play defensively, right? We're seeing PartinG do right now. It has a couple high ground bases, right? It has these platforms that are untouchable. There's some vision for it, right? You can put a Skirmishes up there. You can maybe try to find the range. But there are these positions that are actually really hard for an Infernal player to contest that are going to be some nice, cheap, easy to get Luminite as the game goes on for PartinG, as again tries to develop himself that much more. Now that's going to be a dead Argent. That's not all that great.
I was like, what's he doing out there?
It's an adventure, Nate. We got our suspenders up. We got our hat on. We're going on a safari.
I like it. I thought you were saying we were going out to the old west, but I like Safari Adventure. Also sounds fun as well. If I can throw food at Pokemon and pick a few up there, that sounds like a good time to me. Trying to harass from the low ground, not super great with the brutes, by the way. They are melee. They cannot climb, even though they look tall. They cannot climb on each other's shoulders up that cliff. It would be kind of cool to see, maybe, but not in this version of the game.
Yeah, certainly true. And with those blast nodes as well, you can see that big red ring about whatever unit it targets down. It's a delayed splash damage. It does a reasonable amount of damage. Certainly time to kill in Stormgate is a little slower. It's not quite as bursty as other Blizzard-style RTS games you may be familiar with, but it still does a lot. And that damage, even if, it takes a little longer to kill, that damage still absolutely matters. So Elazer, no good way to get on top of those blast nodes, no good way to knock them down. Doesn't mean that he's going to have to back up. And now PartinG's starting to get in this mid game. We talked about, and maybe even towards the late game, this thing that you have to earn. And in this game, he has earned it. We've got Animancers. I can almost guarantee they have Dark Prophecy done, so you can go and, again, have those big damage slowing areas. And now PartinG, maybe we see him transition a little bit more, maybe scythes, maybe sabers. Not exactly sure how he wants to build an army on top of this, but he's going to start to look for fights around these chokes where he can just block off areas that are going to be difficult for his opponent's army to get into, force them to run through these Dark Prophecies, and by the time they arrive, well, the damage is going to be significant on these units. But Elazer, he's also teched out of this, right? We have a bunch of Hellborn on the field, and if you target down those Animancers, they're very strong units, Nate, but they're not the tankiest things.
No, and it's an interesting setup too, because if those fights start to get a little more prolonged, we know that the Hellborn deals pretty dope damage. I think there's supposed to be some implication of splash. I haven't quite seen that. I saw BeoMulf, this content creator guy you might have heard of. He posted a pretty funny video of the Hellborn splash. It's not much to write home about. This Arc Fortress though, getting a little far from home.
No, this is actually pretty cool though. So Arc Fortress, so Arc Station versus Arc Ship, not that big of a difference. Arc Fortress though, when you unlock that one, and certainly PartinG has the upgrade as well, that means it goes that much faster. It's surged, it goes that much faster as well. But you have this ability called Fate's End, which does 1,500 damage. A massive 1,500 damage beam over like 10 seconds or so, only against structures. And we saw exactly that happen right there. It took down Elazer's third base. These Dark Prophecies as well starting to do a lot of damage here, making it hard for the brutes to get in. And eventually we're going to have some Archangels as well. This is a reasonable fight for PartinG to start to take. Now, granted, he's going to have to back up as the army runs past all of these prophecies. Life gets a little bit more interesting, a little bit more difficult. We have the Archangel in the sky, not doing much at the moment. That's a weird Hellborn on the left side. But PartinG's taken down the third base of Elazer. He has his third base done. He's on this tier 3 tech, trying to go and chase down that Hellborn that just way dangling 250 Therium, especially as Elazer has lost his third base, especially as Elazer's not taking the Therium node on the left side. That's a big deal. And PartinG now, supplies are starting to equalize. His tech is that much better, and watch him die on top of those imps. Half the economy of this base goes down in a second. Yeah, people say, maybe Archangels aren't the best thing. In this game, they're doing great.
Archangels are a unit that I think, though, the way that they're implemented right now, they either look incredible or they look terrible. But this is a great use. It's a huge crash landing onto the main Luminite patch, and we're talking about something spiky. Ay. That's not bad, and not bad at all. And he's going to hold it in the corner. There's another Archangel in the southeast. Not sure if that Luminite patch was also obliterated, but he's holding them around several bases. So you start to lose that comfortability and going out of your expansion. And PartinG he's using this as a way to say, if you leave your base, you're going to potentially sacrifice all or majority of your economy. You need to stay back. You need to keep everything here to stop this, because this right here is your biggest problem at the moment. It's actually pulling them back over to the rest of the army as he approaches for a huge shove on this base.
Yeah, he could do with a couple power banks on these Archangels. At least one of them is totally out of power or totally out of energy, which means they don't have that slam down nearly as strong. So you got to be careful, right? Yes, Archangels will evaporate a bunch of guns if you dive on top of them, but PartinG still has to be very careful. Fighting the open field like this is not what you want to do. You want to play into these chokes, get these massive Dark Prophecies on top of everything. Now the Fiends are going to go down. One Archangel drop, just trying to tank at the front line. But these, oh man, these Hellborn, they're doing so much. Granted, I don't think it's enough, actually. Look at this Purify, all the powers there. The entire army of Elazer outside of these very expensive Hellborn starting to fall down. Elazer rallying more for those, spending all the Animus. And we talked about the front line of Elazer falling down. Sure, fine. Hellborn evaporate PartinG's army as well. And despite everything, it kind of turns into a wash. The power units of both sides, Animators fall down. That's not great. But the power units, the Archangels, the Hellborn on both sides, they're going to survive. And it's just the chaff that falls.
Just a absolutely filthy engagement. I mean, he knocks him off of the Luminite patch. You had the collection array right next to where that fight was taking place. He was able to pick that off during it. Gaunt's trying to split to chase down that Arc Fortress. Just 270 health left, but everything is coming back towards the front for PartinG to try to shut this down. Archangel's going to crash onto the ramp and immediately get smashed by that huge Hellborn damage that we've been talking about, and that is just something that has been tough. He's going to try to throw that underneath them, but I have to say here, Beo, this is where that crazy range for the Hellborn starts to become just a huge pain in the butt, as he's able to really smash down those Argents with that anti-heavy splash damage.
Yeah, it really becomes a problem. Just cannot get on top of it. Now, I'm assuming we're on tier 3. I'm assuming we're Elder Shrine for Elazer as well, which means you're healing 3%. Or actually, excuse me, 4%. White health per second means it's so hard to get on top of these Hellborn, but now we're going to see Sovereign's Watch go on top of everything. It's been upgraded. If you get on top, one of these Hellborn falls down, the Dark Prophecy is going to be there, but you have to find some way to dive on top of them. But again, Elazer keeps pushing forward. He's run out of things to buffer for these Hellborn. They're so expensive. Dark Prophecy on top of it as well. Gaunts, there are a couple. They're not really there. It's only 2 Hellborn that remain. The Animancer falls. This fight is neck and neck here right now, Nate. But again, behind this, PartinG's economy is that much better. Elazer, again, he's lost a lot of imps. I think he's got his third base up now. Main base probably mined out. It feels like he just has to hold on, but can he hold on?
Yeah, the defender's advantage playing into it a bit, right? He's trying to help, right? The power banks, keeping everything regenerated, but he's burning through energy very quickly. Prism's now under threat by the Gaunts as well. It does get another Sovereign's Watch inside of that base to hold it down. And in the meantime, I'm trying to think what exactly has gone for Elazer back home. Well, the Arc Fortress looks like it was getting a little close. That southeast expansion once again. Are we going to see it, Beo? The shutdown of this base by the fortress.
I mean, it's getting scary. It's getting scared to play with the Arc Fortress at this point, right? 458 HP. Yeah, you know, when you're in green power, it does regenerate a little bit more. There is that available. But with the V5 push as well, this base is dead again. So Elazer, if we can take a look at the main base in a second, I'm going to assume that he doesn't have... he's not mined out yet, but he's going to mine out of that main base very soon. Problem, though. Dragons on the field. It's massive. Yes, it's very expensive. 700 popping out on the map right now. 150 Animus. It's a big deal. It's also very hard for the army of PartinG to kill, right? Yes, maybe if we see these Argents get on top of it, that can work out. You can get some Dark Prophecies and slow it down. But really, it's size that are meant to go and deal with that. And PartinG, he's got a lot of money, by the way. You know, he has this 1500 Therium. Maybe he can turn this into some scythes and start to get on top once he clears out all these Gaunts. But the Dragon's the big problem he has to handle right now, because not only does it infest everything, which is tick damage over time, converts a bunch of Fiends, also every Fiend that you get off Infest, it would turn into 2 Infests or 2 Fiends all of a sudden. It really increases the spam of these low units. They really damage soaks as much as anything else that exists. So PartinG, again, these prophecies are really good and getting a lot of damage done on these Gaunts. And if you can push through this V5 rocket launcher as well, just from the backside, distracting, getting some damage done. And man, these Animancers, they're doing damage with Shadowfall, 4% damage healing per second. It's healing out of a lot of it.
Yeah, it's so bizarre because the Argent count is still looking good with the Animancer, and he retreats back to the power banks. He's got a ton of energy to keep the fight going now, but because the Shadowfall is everywhere and the Dragon has this regen, he's trying to, like, as you mentioned, take advantage of that snowball from the double infest as much as possible. And still with the Hellborns in back, it makes it really dangerous to try and dive onto that Dragon. As you mentioned, it is a crazy expensive unit, but I mean, it's also got to be, if we talk about badass things in Stormgate, this is up there, right? I mean, the Flayed Dragon is pretty cool. As people have their opinions on Infest as a whether it comes online early or not, but this is the end game unit. This is the big daddy boy, and it's pretty awesome to see it come out and turn the tides of a fight like that.
One of my favorite interactions, it wasn't a losing Infernal Celestial game, is, you know, it doesn't really count, but you get a couple Archangels up, and they go in, and they have that big flying hammer, and they just run straight into the Flayed Dragon and start to try to hammer it down. You know, is it the best thing? You know, probably not. You probably want sides, but it looks super cool. So, you know, we're going to have to see if that happens. We do have the tech for it, certainly. We did see a lot of the economy go down. PartinG, we talked about those high ground collection arrays that are very difficult for the Infernal player to contest. Well, there's a dragon out on the map right now. It does the second or third highest single target damage in the game. It will take that thing down, but PartinG is on 4 bases. And again, remember, Elazer's lost his third base like 4 or 5 times. The main base is mined out. The Dark Prophecy, any value PartinG can find at this point. The economy of Elazer is bad. It is not very good at all. So this game has turned, yeah, there we go. Main base is mined out. So this game now has turned from, okay, how can I trade? Can I trade efficiently? That's gone now. It's, can I survive Elazer long enough for my economy to build my supply so far past his, where he's not allowed to do anything?
Yeah, it's such an awkward situation because I felt like a lot of things were going really well for Elazer. You're right, PartinG has weathered the storm, and the key factor has been especially the bottom right control and the pressure that he's put on with the Arc Fortress to shut that base down multiple times, and even his taking of that siege camp, like you talked about, getting the extra the V10 rockets to help mitigate that. Dragon even goes over to take the fruit on the map for a little heal. And he's being as cautious as he can be with that very expensive, valuable unit of his. And we're going to have to see now as PartinG approaches. There's a lot of scythes mixed in with the army over here, so giving himself some more anti-air play. Shadow Flyers are there, but we know those can be toppled with a light breeze.
Yeah, these prophecies are really good too, just making it hard for the Shadow Flyers to get on top. They don't have a lot of HP, but also, again, they have to be able to move, and they can't do that right now. So Animancer at the front line will fall. That's not great. Elazer has barely been able to go establish a third base. He's got this army, though, that if you get to critical mass of scythes, you get up to like 30 scythes or something. B loves doing this, but again, that's his entire idea. If you can get to critical mass, you get the upgrades, which I assume he has. You can just go dive on top of all of these gaunts. They fall down, and they're really... Shadow Flyers stop being an answer at that point. They pop the shields there. Scythes don't take a lot of damage. Only the first Shadow Flyer really does that damage, and it can work out very nicely. But for right now, Shadow Flyers continue to dive in. These prophecies slowing the gaunts up. And if you dive on top of the dragon, that's the really important thing. It's getting so low. The bonus damage to heavy, it looks like it's going to run away just barely. So I think you turn around now as PartinG. Knock these Hellborn down because you've lost everything on the ground.
Hits him with the Infest Breath too, so he's kiting him here while they take damage over time, trying to get the chase. Little singed action going on. Dragon, however, manages to stay alive thus far, gets another breath out, and will retreat back towards the gaunt, so they should be able to get some cover against the air. And okay, PartinG was starting to look real nice supply-wise in terms of his setup, but I think that fight just shifted everything. You can really see, get the Light Infest on the edge, the Hellborns shave 1 or 2 Argents off, and then the 2 or 3 Fiends that end up spawning because of the Dragon allow them to just mow down the rest, and that Argent Ball just doesn't get big enough, and really, it's helped him defend, but it doesn't seem like it's enough to go out on the map against this army composition at all.
No, your play right now, you got to build, again, like, 20 plus size, right? You get on top. There are not enough gaunts on the map right now to properly handle that. You dive on top. There's the dragon. That should fall down, I would think. It just barely gets out here. But again, size also, they shred the Hellborn. So it's all about taking the gaunts down. If you can make that happen, if scythes survive, plus this gaunt timing, the rest of PartinG's army, or the rest of Elazer's army evaporates. And we saw that happen right now. That was a 140 supply army for Elazer, right? All of a sudden, pole position, doing this great job. PartinG's built the lead again. Yes, he was dislodged from that high ground base, and that's not great. But Elazer's on a base and a half. Right? Well, he's on 2 bases. That natural's going to mine out fairly soon as we move into this game even more. And PartinG's economy, again, continues to be better. He continues to build these supply leads, and it's all about... I love this, by the way. I was going to say it's all about the size. He adds Cabals in. That means debilitate. It means that your opponent's units, they do less damage when that spell is cast. It means they're slow. They attack slower. You can ground the dragon. You can slam it into the ground so the rest of your army can fight it. It really makes it difficult. Look how slow this dragon is. It's not going to run away again. Surely not. And that is 700 Luminite. 700 Therium going down. PartinG seems like finally he's found the composition that he's looking for. These Hellborn, there's nowhere to run. They can almost barely move, debilitate, Dark Prophecy, everything else. Finally, this damage of Elazer, this army of Elazer should finally get taken down. Yes, there's a Shroudstone Manifest, Nate, but it will not last long enough. I think PartinG's finally found his answer.
Yeah, the Arc Fortress rolling up with the rest of the Celestial Armada at this base, and it has been a hell of a fight over the Southern Vision camp. I just have to continue to throw kudos out. Every time I feel like PartinG is going to finally crush through Elazer, a handful of units just get the perfect hits off, and we really just get to see, in any case where the Hellborns get attacked, they just kind of die. But in any case where the Hellborns are allowed to just do this, be a little bit behind the army, take some chunk shots out from the sides and play off of the infest and just get those low health ones on the edge to transform. That really, PartinG, while he's made some amazing defensive plays, he kind of consistently, they're both almost consistently overextending into the other. Like losing of course the dragon is obviously quite painful, but at the same time, that was his clutch playmaker that was keeping him in it for a bit too. And the natural is mined out for Elazer, so see the imps beginning to rotate away from there. And this has a game of Stormgate ever been fully mined out? Has a map ever been fully mined out in this game? Is it possible? Do we know?
Yeah, there was a famous game, I think during the Steam Next Fest actually, where it was an Infernal versus Infernal, and they got to like 7 dragons aside. They mined out everything.
God bless.
It was like a 5-hour game. It was so wild. I don't think we're gonna go here, but Nate, can I make like just a emergency tournament ruling and say every single map on this, we're playing 3 best of 7s today. Every single game should be played on Boneyard.
Yeah,
because we have had we've had 2 of the best games of Stormgate. We had that game yesterday between Elazer and Percival on this map, that incredible 4-minute fight. Now we're having this game, which is so cool to watch, and it's all been on Boneyard. So the answer is, Nate, Bone Zone, 7 maps, all best of 7s. That's where we're going.
Are you telling me that long maps with vision paths directly between the bases are where players kind of feel like they have more ability to deal with stuff, so we get these games that go longer? Is that what you're trying to say? You're speaking some crazy stuff over here. The dragon is back, by the way, in case anybody missed it. So up on top of that plateau base, right? I guess it's an island base, huh? That's kind of cool to think about. But yeah, prisms get away.
That actually, and remember, prisms, they're slow to start, but they have the massive acceleration. So you send them across the map. It's going to take him a while to get. Oh, wait, that dragon! Wait a minute, that dragon's not where it wants to be.
Over all the Argents.
Yeah, and
right. That'll do it. GG. Okay.
And good news for those that don't want to live in the supremacy of the speed camp flips. We're on Crosspawn. Game number 4 here of this first semifinals of the day. Reminder, there is more. Mana is going to be playing Lucifron later on. We have a grand finals. We got a 2v2 show match. It's going to be fantastic. But for now, this is game number 4, Nate. It's a creation chamber opening. We're playing standard. We're not doing Seraphim proxy. Well, maybe, because there is this morph core on the map. Maybe I need to change my mind a little bit.
This is a little bit we were talking about yesterday. This PartinG has just got his own thing. So he gets up to what I imagine will be that tier 2 very quickly, use it to take the Luminite camp, and then just plant the Legion Hall right in between them. So he kind of just always has the flexibility to quickly contest either of these if Elazer tried to push him off of it early. And even though that second game PartinG was not able to win with the Seraphim build, it was worth mentioning that when Elazer went for the Brutes and the Hexen assault on him, that the Seraphim was still able to push that back. So it's not like if he has to defend a little, he can't. But I do agree with you. The cross-spawn rush distance should make things much easier for PartinG to execute this strategy the way he originally envisioned.
Yeah, it just gives you a little more time, right? It means that as equally as important, not only does it take the first set of units a little bit longer to run across the map and get there, but it means the second set and the third set. Everything just slows down a little bit. And also because you're not vertical, the units aren't going to run by the speed camp. So you don't have that even faster rally time, right? If the Brutes run by the speed camp, they get that active buff. They move 20% faster. It gets very quick. So we're not going to see that, all right? If Elazer wants to put pressure on, he's going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. He's going to have to run across the map. And that gives PartinG a ton of time to get this Legion Hall down, to start to, again, I'm assuming go for Seraphim. I'm assuming start to try to get this map control.
There it is.
And still maybe, there we go, Seraphim are on the way. and still maybe defend against what is likely going to be aggression coming out of Elazer.
Yeah, so he wants to give himself the opportunity to play the big map control. We have the second speed camp being taken by Elazer, so he's going to be bringing out the zoomies over here. We're talking about our dog builds. Well, we can still get a little bit of that action in the Infernal Celestial matchup. So with both speed camps capped, PartinG is actually swinging a scanner around to the west side camp. So a denial here would be quite nice. We're talking about, look how fast those fiends are crawling. So he is going to be... And the other interesting thing, too, I'm just going to say it, the Legion Hall is kind of protected by where it is as well, in a very awkward manner speaking.
Yeah, it's in an even better position, really, than we saw the Legion Hall in Game 1, which was mostly protected. One fiend got on top of it, eventually took it down. But yeah, that is pretty important to point out. Also, again, taking that speed camp. Yeah, you can only get one active. You can only get one 20% buff. Sure. But the passives do stack. These global buffs do stack. Hexen is going to go down off the teleport. And again, now you can't shoot up, so Elazer, this pressure, he's just going to lose units. Seraphim are going to try to chase down as much as they can. But again, taking down that passive buff, it does slow things down just enough. It means the speed differential between the units is going to be just about the same unless there's an active buff. And those are important things to point out. So the question now, Gaunts are actually, yeah, Gaunts are already on the way. So this is still this one base Gaunt brute timing that we've seen coming out of Elazer. But for right now, there are not a lot of Gaunts. And Seraphim, they're going to try to kneecap this, take the Gaunts down before the numbers hit. But yeah, it looks like Elazer spent Hellspawn Resurgence, got a lot of Gaunts out all at once.
Yeah, not bad timing there. Elazer secured with his fiends, by the way, as he's poking the main. He secured the west side camp again, so those Gaunts with the double passive able to get away from those Seraphim. And we traditionally see that they're quite fast, but this is where camp control can really be a big factor. The east side one goes back in the hands of PartinG, so it'll match up a little more nicely now. But like you were saying, he dumped into a huge amount of Gaunts, and now it turns into, can he make this defense happen with units that are typically just not that great at trying to shut down these huge amounts of ground anti-air? So he's going to kite back through his defenses. Use Sovereign's Watch to try and hold this. The Brutes getting caught inside the little corner pocket, but the Argents all get picked off, and the Gaunts are still standing strong so far, Beo.
Yeah, I was going to say, here's the problem. One Sovereign's Watch had already been used, so only one of them is available for the first hit. That being said, all the Brutes go down, all the Fiends go down. Yes, both Sovereign's Watch have been used. We're on yellow power, so everything builds a little bit slower. PartinG holds on the first time. He has this pocket third base that he's mining with a couple of prisms. That's going to work out fairly nicely for him. And if he can get up to a couple blast nodes just stuck there behind the Luminite mine, that's going to work out fairly nice. Again, if you can get those blast node shots on these Gaunts, you're forcing the split away. They don't have Reaper's Rush. They're not all that fast. It can make a big difference. But for right now, I mean, we're seeing those big shots on the Gaunts. So, I mean, this is actually working out fairly nicely here. Elazer feels like he might be overcommitting this. Yeah, there's no Sovereign's Watch. There isn't, but it's going to be up soon. And so much of Elazer's army, yeah, he's killed a lot of these Argents, absolutely, but a lot of Elazer's army has just fallen into the dirt here in this game 4.
Yeah, we're not really able to see him capitalize with the Gaunts. He doesn't have the upgrades for them, right? They're a little bit on the paltry side as far as these scrappy low unit number engagements go. And PartinG ends up drawing the majority of his energy out. Now he's going to try and drop the collection around the natural right as Elazer shows up. So decent deny there, being able to try and get something going for himself. But also worth mentioning when we talk about the creep economy, the camp economy, PartinG, is he getting boxed in a little bit? Sure, the prisms can kind of go to other bases though, and well, for Elazer's sake, he's still playing off of this one base, right? We're still playing off of this low eco because the money is coming from the camps.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm a little surprised. We saw Elazer trying to take that pocket base, which works out great. It's super close to your main, right? You can get a morph core right there, but that north side base that we can see, that's just, granted, just Luminite, not Therium. But if you can take that north side base, if you want to contest that as an Infernal player, you got to run up and around or send an imp across, and that just really is hard to contest. So PartinG, though, he's still going to take the pocket base. He says, you know what, this is fine. I can just kind of lift and drop, and it's going to be okay. And we do have that Guardian Nexus done soon, right? That is that. Well, he's going to find these prisms trying to mine a little bit separate spot, but we do have that Guardian Nexus. Once it's surged up, it has a lot of bonus armor against all these structures. It's going to mean the defense is that much stronger. Ascension Chamber as well, right? Bonus damage to all the units around. Once PartinG gets these defensive structures up, and once he gets a little more power, once he gets back into the green, he can start to drop more Sovereign's Watches. This build, this army out of Elazer, is not going to be as powerful as it was. Certainly not. So Elazer, he has this army. He's living in PartinG's base, but only now, Nate, only just now is he getting that natural.
Yeah, and only just now are we able to see him move up on the gaunt upgrades too, and he's making some progress there. But we've got the plague axes on the way, and we talk about some of these scrappier fights with the the units that get a little clumped up, and him trying to take these battles. That's that momentum play that he needs to help make this happen. But as he said, the natural comes so late, and really PartinG he has not been able to really necessarily secure traditional natural in that sense of his own, but the prisms can kind of mine from anywhere, so even getting dislodged doesn't necessarily hurt him, since there's nothing there to contest him in the bottom left, right? He's pulling in some money from that, and it has just been non-stop aggression both ways.
Yeah, it really has. And again, we're looking at this point where this build out of Elazer, it's a lot of Gaunts early. It's a lot of Animus early, so he can't really sustain this production the way you would like. This Seraphim, I think, dies eventually. Notice, actually, he's really confident that the Seraphim dies, so he chases the scanner down with the skull, just again make sure that is fine, that he gets this this Luminite camp. But actually, he's not going to, because a bunch of Argents coming from the left side are going to force him out for now. Although he's got Elazer brings some friends, so it looks like this is very much oh, I ambushed you. No, you ambushed me. Okay, we got to run away here just a little bit. Point being, though, Elazer, he did commit a lot of Animus to this, Therium to this, Luminite to this. He doesn't have a Ritual Chamber done, I don't think, but for right now, these imps or these fiends just trying to block things out. Plague Axes are finally done. Effigy just trying to block a little bit more, and PartinG has to run right back into his main base. Yeah, I think he probably has Photo Restoration. That's a nice shot from the Blast Node. And I think he's regenerating, energy a little faster. I think he's moving a little faster. But we do need, again, we need more splash damage. Whether that's going to be for Animancers, likely going to be the case. PartinG does have to get to that next round of tech.
Yeah, Sovereign's Watch on the Collection Array will not spare it from being destroyed. Pulls back the Gaunt with the Blast Node shot on it, and we can really see that's where the Plague Axes start to become super annoying off the bounce damage of the Gaunts, and he can start to chew through this. Doesn't necessarily have that tankiness, but the way he started that fight, running up the ramp, and I think half the Gaunts had just gone through the speed camp, so he was kind of slingshotting himself up there a little bit, but not quite able to drive the knife in. And I do feel like that's been a little bit of the story of this series, or at least this game. In the last one, we talk about the larger maps, Beo, but he doesn't quite have the economy PartinG does that he was defending on last game either. You don't. This Luminite patch below the Cliff of the Main is maybe as close to free resources for Celestial, I think, as you can get. But even then, it's not something he's been able to secure and hold on to, because Elazer has just been that aggressive.
Yeah, I do think taking that north side base, right, that's on the high ground, that's a little bit further away on the, what do we want to call that, the 4 o'clock position maybe. That's probably the free one. Actually, it's weird because it's so far away from your natural or from your main base, and there's this idea in RTS games where, well, the closer it is, like the more in close I am, the freer it is, the easier it is to defend. But again, you have to run so far away, so far around from where you want to be. So for now, though, PartinG does have these prisms on the left side. Elazer seems to have no idea. And yeah, 3 or 4 prisms, Nate, it's not a full base. A collection array plus 4 prisms is that full mining saturation, but it's something. And it is, yeah, PartinG hates that he lost the collection array, but he's not totally out of mining. And it is certainly better than long distance mining with half your workers, with all your workers to a different base. So economy, not great for PartinG, but it exists better than if like any other faction had gone and lost their natural.
Yeah, what I've noticed as well about PartinG is that he's been keeping good track of Elazer's camps on his side too. Watching the Luminite one, he just took his Therium camp with the Seeker, but also he's had a good vision that healing camp hadn't been taken at Elazer's base for a little bit, because everything Elazer builds just gets rallied out. So Elazer's contesting his stuff, but he's been able to back cap a few of these key points as well, and it's something to keep in mind when we talk about how PartinG stays in these games. Do I think that the third base of Elazer will eventually get sniped 4 times by the Giga Chad laser of the Arc Mega Station? I don't know about that for this matchup, but a PartinG has just done a really good job of being as much of a denier of the camps as he can. And did he land the scanner and try to run away from the skull? Okay.
Yeah, so remember, scanners are fun, right? They're this flying thing through the air, and they can latch onto a tree and become cloaked and hard to see. Luckily, Infernals have Skullashetta that allows you to see them and knock them down. But once they land, once they pop off that tree for the first time, they don't get to fly again. They're on the ground, they run around a little bit. If you want another flying scanner, you got to build another one. So it does get a little, yes, they can hop back on trees again, but they don't have that ability to fly around and be a little bit more mobile. So yeah, we absolutely saw that. PartinG did a great job of back capping Elazer. We noticed here, the first week that we saw, that's Dark Prophecy is almost really good. The first week that we saw this happening, right? This idea of just scanner openings, Infernal players had no idea what to do. They weren't really responding to it very well. It was just massive map control that the Celestial player was getting. And then they realized, oh, I'm just gonna have a Hexen with my army at all times, and that I dropped the Skulashetta. That gives me detection, high ground, flying vision. It works out very nicely for me. I can handle these scanners. I have some counterplay to these scanners. So again, we see Elazer doing that. He's got these Hexen with the army. And notice also, as he gets ready, as PartinG kind of contested that high ground, he just pulls himself up against the effigy, against the wall, builds himself a natural concave that PartinG absolutely does not want to fight into. So it's all about the chokes, right? Lost Hope is not Boneyard. It has this massive, so many wide open areas. You don't have these chokes that PartinG was able to take advantage of, and that makes it very hard to contest these massive concaves of Infernal players that Elazer's got. Yeah, surrounds even.
This is a sandwich that Elazer's going for, but the Dark Prophecy actually holding quite a few of those gaunts in the cooldown space, so he's not able to really get that big swarm that he was looking for. Really doing a great job of zoning out the Infernal army is PartinG, and okay, I mean, that's exactly one of those fights that looks like it could be disastrous, but that south side, I like that when he realizes he's going to get hit from both sides, he just chooses to collapse on the bottom, clear it out, and then never really has to fight the whole army at once. Just heads up decision making by PartinG to not try and retreat, because I think maybe that's where it really blows up for him.
Yeah, it's funny you take a look at this, and okay, so there are two truisms in real-time strategy games. On the one hand, it's I'm gonna build a surround. If I attack, if I have a bigger arc, if I go from full 360, more of my units are gonna be fighting than yours are. I'm gonna be able a big surround. Your DPS is it's hard to get your splash damage where it needs to be. That's great. The other hand is if your opponent's setting that up and you know that's happening and you know that's getting set up, take the fight against part of the army, because if they're setting a full 360, Nate, that also means that half their army isn't fighting. And that means that you can go pick off part and part and part, and it can work out very nicely for you. So PartinG takes a massive fight here, builds himself this supply lead. He's got Archangels going to, again, I'm assuming, to try to go take some of these imps down. But this time, he's learned. Imps get split away. There's damage, but it's not insane damage here. And with the Dragon on top, Shadow Flyers in the air, this Archangel is doing a lot of damage. That's still a lot of splash damage, but it's not going to go evaporate 3 Luminite lines like we saw last game.
No, it's a tricky situation too. Fighting over the center, just the single vision camp on this map, but that vision that it provides is so important, and particularly in any long game. We see the flayed dragon in the middle of the map for Elazer, but in any super long game of Stormgate, something that you learn, a painful lesson you learn on Lost Hope too, is yeah, you've got Therium in your main and then that low ground natural, but unless you really branch out, getting any more Therium becomes a huge pain in the butt, because you have to expand to either another corner, which your opponent will surely be preparing for, or it's in the middle of the map, and that's more or less it. And there's a ton of it in the very center, but it makes that control of the position so much more important. And the fact that Elazer has 2 or 3 Therium patches in the middle that he's mining off of during all of this is just kind of nice to see for him to be able to continue to keep those techie expensive units. We got a lot of Magmadons in the army now.
Yeah, and Magmadons are the ultimate answer to, can be one of the ultimate answers to a lot of the stuff that an Infernal or that a Celestial player wants to do.
Oh, Dragon's fighting the Argents. Oh, Drag's building them. And it's just, yep, it's dead. Oh. Well, just walked up to it and killed it. I wasn't staring at that unit while we were talking. No. I was curious what would happen.
Chad knows what to do, right? -700, -700, spam it. Well, actually, the copy pasta needs to be better, right? Because it's -700, -700, minus. Oh, look at that. That's kind of cool.
Double dunk.
Spend all your energy. It's dead, right? Eventually, there's going to be the oh, gets up. Wait, maybe it's not dead. Shadow Flyer's not chasing it down.
Yeah, it's when you see the Shadow Flyers chase, that's when the Vanguard part of my brain turns on, and I'm like, shields up, fly into him. just take them off.
Chat's learned, by the way. It's not -700, -700. It's -700, -700, -150. There we go.
It's a lot of it's the animus too that comes into play there, right? It is not cheap. The dragon is hard. It's not even as expensive as the resources. It is so much worse than that.
On top of that, it's a 7-minute cooldown as well. So this dragon. Now, we saw in game 1, PartinG lost the dragon. He got it back up fairly quickly, but that's because that dragon was playing for quite a while. This game, that dragon popped out and died very fast. So this big, powerful late game tier, really the only tier 3 unit that Elazer has, is going to go down. We're going to see Fate's End try to go and take this shrine down. This time, Shroudstone Manifest is well placed. It's a little faster. I don't think it does enough damage in time. PartinG gets the snipe on this third base.
It's
and,
so funny to watch this.
Shadow Flyers, okay, how much HP does this thing have? It's hard to see the... Oh!
Yikes. Well, the Arc Fortress is gone. So, okay. I think maybe he was like, okay, that dragon came a little easy. I'm just going to yeet this Arc Fortress in here. He did get the base, by the way, so it's not like it was for nothing. But now PartinG is approaching the center of the map. There's 1 to 2 Animancers, some sights. He's got the Archangel overhead, 2 more Animancers in tow. But this, the economy being repositioned, he's fighting on the west side as that expansion gets taken, but it allows him to clear all that Therium mining in the middle, which you talk about how you get all that Therium. Like, okay, Elazer's banking 1800. I won't mention the Therium anymore, but Archangel's going to dive straight into the middle of that army.
Oh, that's a massive shot, but immediately we see the Magmadons going in. We talked about Magmadons as this answer to a lot of things the Infernal player wants to, or the Celestial player wants to do, but they also get massively slowed. So if you can put these prophecies down right on top of everything, they cannot make contact. And by the time those stuns, well, they started, oh, this one's bad though. We're gonna say by the time the stuns were done, they could not make contact with the Animancers. PartinG splits away from this one, and he has built himself an 80 supply lead into this game. The Magmadons, they're just so very slow. And yeah, Shroudfall, yes, 4% healing, Nate, but it looks like PartinG is going to be able to chase away so much of this Therium-rich army is going to go down. And yeah, I know Elazer has 1800 in the bank. He does, 100%. But without access to that center mining area, that 1800 does not go very far. Four of these Hellborn are 1,000 Therium. The late game Infernal player needs a ton of Therium, and even that, again, that bank is there. That gets spent very quickly.
Yeah, if he can't go out and take the maps to get the bonus Luminite, spending that Therium will be difficult anyway. And there's the GG. I think Elazer just saw the bottom left base.
And now it's another large map. It's another cross-spawn map. But again, Nate, we have to point this out. There are speed camps on the map. This long cross-spawn, long rush distance matters a little bit less when you have a speed camp right outside of your natural.
Yeah, it's not a direct rally, but basically more or less you go right there on the way out, and then it's a pretty quick jump forward. PartinG moving up, taking, I mean, the double Luminite paces, it just makes sense. You have access to a ton of resources here, setting up a staging ground here, keeps access to that speed camp that you were talking about, which of course you don't want to just make sure your opponent doesn't take from you, but you want to always have access to that because getting around this big map is so important. Isle of Dread, if you played Stormgate or, you know, follow the discourse around it, this is one of those maps that's a little more on the crazy side. You have 2 huge openings to your natural, to your main. There's not really a lot of closed off spaces. There are some chokes in the corners, but for the most part, you have to be very on top of where your opponent is moving around because there's just a couple of different ways that they can come at you, and if you're not careful, something flying around the edge of the map, especially on this one, could be a lot more dangerous than some of the others because you just kind of have that nice little beachside property, but you don't want your arc station hitting around the corner either in 20 minutes from now.
No, so yeah, it's the question again, can PartinG survive the early game? Because Elazer, we're going to see him get aggressive again, certainly on this map that has these speed camps, and, you know, we're not going to see this weird, not going to say weird, we're not going to see the Seraphim idea, right? Not this heavy focus on creeping around and defending against things. No, it's going to be double creation chamber. He's going to build a bunch of Argents. He's going to have to defend the old-fashioned way because that's just how things have to go. And this, well, this Hexen's just trying to be annoying, making it so that it's harder to take the speed camp. Now, again, double Argent should be able to force this off, and that is going to be totally fine. But as we get set up here in this game number 5, Nate, it's probably important to talk about how these factions are different. Because Celestials are something that we have not seen in at least a Blizzard-style RTS game pretty much ever. You don't have to build supply units. You start out with 300 supply. You're totally fine there. But on the flip side, you have this energy resource, this power resource we can see as that purple circle on the bottom bar. And that really impacts how well all of your top bar stuff works. That really impacts how all your structures work. So we're going to hold that thought for a second because a couple Argents maybe a little bit too far on the map. These Fiend timings that Elazer's so good at finding. PartinG thinks he can be on the map. He tries so hard. And then when it's only 2 Argents versus a bunch of Fiends, it does not work out all that well. But as we can see, again, just going back for just a second, Sovereign's Watch was cast. That's that top bar ability, that laser that goes down that was used defensively. PartinG now is at 66 now out of 60 power. That means that he can't use more top bar abilities for the time being. We see a red ring around all of his structures. That means that they produce a little bit slower. Now, if they had a yellow ring, so if he was within, I think it is 80% of max power that's being used, as we see right now, all of a sudden, He produces slower, but not quite as slow. And then green, you have HP regen on your structures. You produce much faster. It's a pretty cool system.
Yeah, it's a really bizarre, I think, if you're maybe coming from another RTS game and you tune in and you're like, does he really have 300 supply? And it's like, his supply is a little closer to what you see technically on the right side. The 60 to 75 says a little bit more for the Celestials anyway, how much power they have access to. Typically dictates the size of the army, since, as you mentioned, if you're at red power, if you go overpower, you're not exactly doing a whole lot of, you kind of need to get it to build and do stuff anyway. So it's not entirely about the traditional sense of supply, and it's one of the things that makes Celestials in Stormgate very unique in the RTS space. There's just not a lot of concepts like this that you can mess around with, especially when the other factions in the game are still more traditional types, right? Like Vanguard or Infernal. They kind of abide by more of the normal quote-unquote rules, I guess you could say.
Dude, this Championship Sunday, the rules are out the window at this point. So we're gonna see that vision. We're gonna see that vision camp get taken, right? That is really important when you're worried about this aggression coming out of Infernal players. Making sure you have that vision camp is gonna be fairly nice, but also you have to be careful, because the other thing to look at as we get ourselves set up into this is that every camp that is taken is shown on the map. Elazer knows the moment that PartinG takes the camp. That means he knows where Elazer, or at least a majority of PartinG's army is, which of course means that he can go for a run by maybe. As we see Fiends going up on the north side, trying to dive into the main base maybe. You can go and try to catch the army in the middle of the map. All of these things, it's a lot of knowledge, a lot of vision that is just provided free of charge to players on the map.
He tries to get some of the Fiends inside of the main, poking the collection array a little bit, getting a distraction, and at the same time, pushing in the Brutes on the left side of that natural. He does have the Shroud Stone across the tree line, but I think he'll need vision for it to be able to attack, of course, so he's kind of trying to play around that. There's the Shroud Stone manifest. Is that the manifestation next to it, too? And only gets 1 or 2 hits off, so Elazer, I felt like he was trying to force something a little bit there that didn't happen. That's quite an expensive thing to just drop for only having 2 Brutes here now.
Yeah, Elazer loves this idea. He has done this in a bunch of games in this tournament thus far, where you go one base Magmadon as the follow-up. He actually used this to kill Percival in Game 4 to make it on to Grand Final Sunday, where you go, it's 1 base, you spend all your Therium, you attack on up to this double Shroud Stone, you get the manifestation, which is a lot of power, and then in this case, you actually cut through the trees. That's very cool. Magmadons are very strong, but these Argents right here are just going to target this all down. I don't think this works. This idea from Elazer is kind of cool, but I mean, this is Argent power right here with power banks behind. The Magmadons do not kill this.
Yeah, it's fascinating. He's got the Wraith Stone, so the Enfeeblement aura is a little different than the normal Shroud Stone, just having the turret to attack, so it's kind of that slow and decay if he gets near it, so it's playing around the zoning potential of this a little bit more than maybe we used to, and that is kind of dragging the collection array down, even though he's not able to necessarily push it directly as it tries to fly away. So we can really see that shroud that's being spread by the stone here is actually kind of toxic right now, and we're seeing it play out in a very funky way, because I agree with you, the unit count not doing so much, but seeing that that even just a little bit of base that he has touching the shroud at all is melting away. His Guardian Nexus, the power bank, and I don't think the other collection array is just outside the range of it, but what an absolutely bizarre type of way to use this, and something I certainly haven't seen yet in this tournament so far this weekend.
I legit had no idea that the Wraith Stones actually do damage to structures. I'm like, yeah, okay, 2.5% or 2% damage to units is great, sure, fine. But doing that damage to structures, I mean, I haven't seen a situation where it's been relevant. So luckily, though, at the very least, PartinG, he loses the Guardian Nexus. That's not great. That is pain, but big deal. As we see another Shroud Stone manifest on this 1 base push. He did get Photo Restoration done, so the Argents are going to be faster. They do get a little bit more power back. But I think at this point, almost as PartinG, you just try to have to go somewhere else. The slow push is so strong now. We're going to see the Shroud Stone manifestation is about halfway done. So that power, that additional damage, that additional attack speed is going to be done soon. And I think that's the timing where PartinG's waiting for. When the Shroud Stone is just another Shroud Stone, doesn't do a lot more. You can just kind of burst it down. Magmadon's trying to move forward, but they don't have that slow ability. We're not fighting in the Wraith Stones anymore. And somehow in everything, there's a 1 base build from Elazer. Not only has he found the Luminite or the Therium for a couple Magmadons, also for a Hellborn. You know, this is a surprisingly high-tech 1 base army.
And this, well, now with the Hellborn, I think you can really force him to have to step onto the Wraithstone Shroud, which that's 2% health decay per second, apparently, according to the stats on it. So we can see all the Argents take a little bit of damage, but since he was able to approach it and destroy it, he's of course able to now spare himself from any additional damage there, and he's once again limited to just what he has outside of PartinG's base, which is this single Hellborn trying to kite now as a Brute comes up to split on it, but he is not able to save the Hellborn. There's just an effigy for the Shroud, not quite as intimidating as the Wraithstone, and GG is called.
Yeah, and now we're on Jagged Maw, which is a map that has been extremely polarizing, to put it lightly, Nate. It's a map that is extremely close by air, but much further by ground. We saw Vortex yesterday. This was kind of Vortex's downfall. He tried to go and do the double Shroud Stone push on this map, and it didn't work out for him. The rush distance by ground is, again, very long, even if you take kind of that right side path. It's a little shorter, but still, again, very, very long. So Elazer, do you go for the aggression? Again, double vault, sure, fine, likely. But I think if I'm Elazer here, I think that's been solved. I think if I'm Elazer, I want to go and try to hit this mid game faster. Go for like a double vault expand type of build. Get those quick Magmadons and try to run my opponent over with Demon Hoof Tremors with that stun before they get into the late game. I don't know, but again, this early game aggression that Elazer's done for 5 games in a row now, it's starting to fall off.
It's the story of, you know, Beo, it reminds me of when we started our show today, and we're talking about all the crazy things that happened yesterday, and Killer Pigeon is just using his very sultry voice to keep us all calm and relaxed. And everybody in chat says, "Are you kidding me? Mana beat Vortex." And at this point, maybe PartinG is expected by some to be the person that would win this series, but it's turning into a very similar, like, yes, he's got a very strong build. Yes, he won 2 games, more or less, with it in a row. But PartinG is not playing off of a script. He is of any RTS player, he is maybe one of the most known for doing well, particularly off script. In fact, you talk about PartinG playing in even just, new RTS, but when the Legacy of the Void campaign came out, PartinG won the very first tournament for that. That happened like immediately after release. So he's somebody that in a volatile game state where there aren't a bunch of figured out stuff, he's still able to learn and adjust on the fly, and that's what he's done in this match. I mean, you start down 2 very rough maps, and now he's up 3-2, potentially about to punch his ticket to the grand finals.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm looking at this. I'm like, oh, okay. Looking at the day to start, I'm like, oh man, I'm not biased, right? Yes, I've put this tournament. Yes, we're organizing this tournament. I just want good games, right? And I'm kind of hoping that
Elazer just wants good games.
Yes, but I was kind of hoping like Elazer in the grand finals against Lucifron sounds fantastic. If we can get more games like that Percival game on Boneyard, oh man, just best thing. And now PartinG's like, yeah, no, this matchup, Celestial versus Infernals, can give you the exact same thing. And again,
let him cook.
He's in the kitchen, and we're turning into a Michelin star here, just a little bit.
Everything that comes on the other side of that order counter has been gold today. I'm very happy. I'm very happy with the Stormgate experience that we've had here. Yesterday was brutal, right? Lots of short matches, lots of aggression, and particularly players kind of struggling with that adjustment side of it, but. It's just been fantastic today to watch 2 players that can really push each other to the point where all the things that we we whine about, we're like, oh, this build is so hard to deal with. Oh, that Infernal push looks crazy. I die to that every time. It's like, well, PartinG holds on. PartinG does actually just do it with mostly Argents and bleeding out and getting just blow after blow landed on him, but he just doesn't break. And by the time that he's finally ready to move out on the map, every game, it has been very difficult for Elazer to stop him. So we go to a little bit more of a condensed map, and I wonder if that doesn't help him a bit, because that rush distance, like you mentioned, even if it's a smaller map, Beo, this map, the rush distance is not really that much smaller. I guess really for Elazer, it's the speed camps maybe that he's going to be leveraging more than anything.
Well, okay, so caveat to that, it does get small once the middle of the map gets taken down. Those rock spires, True. You get a Magmadon out, you take an imp out, and it takes quite a while, but you can knock that down, right? That does speed things up. But yeah, you're right. Up until that point, very hard to effectively get your rally across the map. And Elazer seems to, he is wise to this. We see his shrine is not fast compared, it's not a single vault, getting it very quickly, something like that. But he does have his shrine down. He is actually going for this. And PartinG, he got that arc station. So V5 rocket this unit, all this neutral thing. So for context, those camps in the middle, those are siege camps. You can go, you can claim them. It gets there used to be a catapult, now it's a V5 rocket launcher. It does this big splash damage, doesn't do friendly fire, this big splash damage against these high level players. Very rare. It's very rare that it does much of anything. And in fact, in this case, we're going to have the rockets. They're going to fight each other in the middle of the map, Nate. In fact, no, they're not, because the Elazer finds PartinG's way too quickly.
He's struggling there. They almost pushed him down the cliff. Great thing those fiends kept him from falling. Really, really helpful. But how about that? You go to take the camps, and then it ends up, well, the shoe's on the other foot. Now you don't have the rocket launcher. Your opponent does. But is it how intimidating is the rocket launcher to the Argents? Like if he were to take one bad shot from that, is that a lot of damage for him from this, or is this more just like a you have to come out and respond to it kind of thing?
I mean, 70 damage is a third of the entire army's HP, right?
That's not bad.
If it hits, and I mean, there we go.
That's a nice. Sometimes just getting that visual confirmation, right? It's nice to kind of see. It's like, okay, you don't want to take hits from this. You could maybe take one through it, but it's going to be tricky. And now coming up once again here, now onto the defense, we do have a blast node up front, 2 of the batteries, as well as a link node on top. It's currently in the process of upgrading right on top of the healing camp. So rocket launcher is going to be focused down, does get taken out, and that should push the majority of this attack back.
Yeah, again, nice idea. And as we can see, I talked about how, it doesn't tend to do much all that often. Good players will split against it. Argents, even with photo restoration, even with that 13% speed increase, as we can see, PartinG wasn't quite able to avoid all the damage that he would have liked. Again, not the end of the world. And he is going to now be able to force the Elazer back quite significantly. But he did take some damage from it. Luckily for him, though, that health camp, extremely accessible. He's just able to sit right back into it. And that does mean that a lot of the damage that he took didn't end up mattering all that much. And now PartinG, as he is just trying to, again, leapfrog the mid game in its entirety, go into the late game, he's got Animancers on the field. I don't know if they have Dark Prophecy just yet, but he has them out. They're ready to go. That power, Dark Prophecy is about halfway done, actually. So he's got, very soon, he's going to have this very powerful, slow AoE ability. And, Nate, if you look at this map on Jagged Maw, there are a lot of small chokes he can take advantage of.
Definitely, especially you were talking about how that rush distance gets opened up if they break the middle. It still hasn't happened, and I think a part of that too, we talk about the tech, we talk about the investment in this big push, and we don't necessarily have that rush up into those Magmadons quite in the same way, but the Argents have got a little bit of distance to cover back. This is one of those situations where 1 or 2 of these units getting picked off in the wrong spot, or a couple fiends popping end up making things really, really uncomfortable. He does have Plague Axe, but not necessarily the speed to chase him down. So a fiend is going to see, by the way, that the collection array did start on that double Luminite patch on the bottom right. So Elazer getting himself a little more information as to what PartinG is up to.
And it's important to point out, as we saw Elazer try to take that fight, Reaper's Rush wasn't done. That's a 30% speed increase on those gaunts. So Argents right now, they can go and they can poke a little bit. Sure, fine. But once Reaper's Rush is done, they can just get chased down. And again, Dark Prophecy is going to be so good. This time, though, not going to be able to go and ward away all these Magmadons, which means that now, we're going to see one of those Animancers get annihilated immediately. Magmadons, again, there is counterplay here. You put the Prophecy in the path of where the Magmadon wants to go. It takes the slow, like, half a second to tick up, and it works out very nicely for you. The Magmadon doesn't make contact with the Animancers by the time that Demon Hoof trample, by the time that stun is done. But if the Magmadon gets the first attack, if they get right through there, all of a sudden, Animancers, they don't get to channel their spells. They die very, very quickly. And we kind of saw both of those. We saw that happen in the previous games where the slow just invalidated the damage, and we saw right there where the Magmadon made it very hard for those Animancers to cast their spells. But for now, I see it. I see a rally on the Arc Fortress that is now complete. Beo, it is rallied. It is rallied towards the outside. It's going towards the outside of that main base of Elazer a little bit, okay? But Elazer's whole army is on that west side, clearing out everything, all the trees, Ethereum camp, the Vision camp. Is he going to pull back? I'm interested to see how far is PartinG about to go with this, because the first time I saw the Q on it, it was right outside the main base, so he's pulled it a little closer. He does have Archangels as well, but that air distance makes that base sniping potential feel like even a little bit more disastrous potentially, and it is on his way to the natural. Oh no, Elazer hasn't noticed. Bam! All the imps are dead immediately. This is This does not feel good. And again, this is why Jagged Maw, one of the reasons why it's, I said it was polarizing, and then I saw everyone watching saying, it's not polarizing, everyone hates it. Which I'm sure not everyone hates it, but a decent amount are not fans. Because you can run across a map like this, take advantage of this positioning, and it really be uncontestable. So Archangel's on the high ground. Yes. Oh, God, that's a big shot on top of all of these gaunts. Dark Prophecy as well. Elazer. Yeah, he's gonna go and take down one of these collection arrays, I think. Was it worth his entire main? Well, actually, it's natural in this case. Okay, because a Greater Shrine has more HP, so you don't one-shot it with the Fate Ender. Was it worth the loss of an entire mining, an entire Luminite line, a natural, and a large portion of your army? I don't think so, Nate.
No, he makes a huge push for that, but the Arc ship took out the natural. The Arc Fortress made it home as well, so his natural got completely cleared out. Huge amount of tech units were popped. Like you said, we all got to learn a little bit together. Where's my natural? Yeah, it's in the next patch, maybe at this point, but
next game.
Parting.
Man, did you see Elazer's look in the webcam when that happened, when he noticed?
That Arc Fortress, it'll pull a sneaky on you. Careful.
Oh yeah, this is at this point, this game is just starting to get really, really bad for Elazer here. By the way, before this game yesterday, I said, oh,
I'm sorry.
What a game.
What an end.